I don't know, but she's here. All right, we're up, I think, right? Cool. Hey, what's up, Flip? 424, how's it going? Hi, Lisa. You're over there, right? But I see ya. Good afternoon, Deepanella, Clarissa. Hi, Gaudy. Do you think I'm a mobster with that? Christopher, Camille, Nikki, Kala, Nigel. Hi, Lise. How's it going?
Good. How are you? How's everything going with you tonight?
I'm fantastic. I am so good.
We have a really good show today.
We have a great show. We have a great show today. Which story are you most excited for?
I'm equally as excited for our big guest, which let's not tell the chat who it is yet and see if they can guess, even though I think we've been teasing on News Now during the day, so maybe they will anyway. And
any guesses? Has to do with space.
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited about that Stanford research study, though.
That's gonna be a fun one for sure. We actually had a good laugh in the meeting about that story, and the Venezuela piece.
Yeah, what did I miss?
Is gonna be really good too. Well, it was just basically AI making everybody think we're smarter than we are, because it kind of kisses your butt when it gives you answers, you know.
Mm-hmm. Chat. What we're talking about is there's this researcher out at Stanford, and she's like, my friends are all using AI to help write breakup texts. And so she started researching, how often this was happening. And what she uncovered is a societal problem, which is basically, even when we're at fault for breakups, like if you cheat on somebody, guess what? That little sycophant in your pocket is going to be like, oh, but you did it because of this. And they're going to help you justify all these things, and then they help you break this stuff up. And is that good for society? Like, is all of a sudden you having some thing that is constantly going to tell you that you were right and the reason why you did this is fine? Is that good for human relationships? Obviously, a lot to think about there. So she's going to join us, right?
So the thing that we played from that is we brought back, which they're going to see a clip from your buddy Husk IRL. The one where Zach is laughing behind me here. The one where he's asking how his Spanish is, and he says the entire sentence in English. And AI's like, that was so good. Your pronunciation is awesome, Super conversational.
Dude, I love that guy. I still need to put together a video of me showing Kimmy, like, her reaction. She's like the biggest fan. And when she realized that he totally pwned us on our show and I showed her that video, I have her just dying of laughter on the couch. But we'll put that together at some point. Doreen, hello, great to see you. She's got a lot of background echo. That's because she is in charge, and right now she's talking to somebody. Anyway, this is Lisa. Lisa, she is the executive producer of the show. She's a person always in my ear. She's the smartest person around. You guys have AI, I have Lisa, and she's a real person. I don't know what happened to your audio, Lisa. Is it dead on my end or just yours? But yeah. That's what's going on there. No, it's an enabler and a detriment to character development. Elisa is the boss. That's right. That's the echo of power, says Peace Bucks. Wow. Okay. And I think we're trying to figure out the audio there. And then let's see. Surprise guess. Oh yeah. Back to who you guys think we talked to today. All right. There's one person I've been wanting to ask about this thing called mass drivers. Does anybody here know what a mass driver is? Come on, YouTube. Somebody's got to know what a mass driver is. Anybody read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress?
YouTube, don't feel bad. None of us knew what he was talking about when he asked us for video of this.
TikTok, Mass driver, TikTok. Let's see. I'm gonna wait.
I bet Twitch is gonna know.
That's a big.
Twitch is gonna know what a mass
big,
driver
big-
is.
Twitch is definitely gonna know what a mass driver is. Going once, going twice. The SpaceX thing, kind of. SpaceX has an idea for a mass driver, but they're not the only ones. Okay. Hey, did you look that up? Peace Bucks? Is it 800 feet? I don't know if that's right. I don't know if that's how long it has to be. I don't know if it's necessarily has to be an exact length. It has to be an exact speed. Anyway, okay, here's what a mass driver is. So, because the gravity of the moon is only 1/6 gravity, you don't have to work very hard to get things out into space from the surface of the moon. You can basically just go really fast and then ramp off into space. So a mass driver is basically this, it's kind of like a rail. It's like a roller coaster that is built, but then the roller coaster just ends, and then you just fly, and then you just keep flying, and you fly all the way into space, and you will leave the moon, the lunar surface, and go off into space without any sort of propellant propulsion. You could do that with, an electromagnetic rail system. So that's what they're talking about doing. Well, that's what some people are talking about doing, and I want to know if that's real or if that's science fiction. So who should we ask about that? Who would be a good person to ask? It's not Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, but who would be a good person to ask to see if NASA is actually into the mass driver game? It was on there, Peace. Aw, you watched the show. I would love to be the pet test pilot. On the moon, though, not here on Earth. Made out of aluminum. They could be. Hey, SML saw us on News Daily 2 to 3. That's right. We've had a very long day. Had a very, very long day. What is there on the moon worth getting of it? Ooh, Peace Bucks. That's a great question. Okay, so at first, probably nothing that we would want here on Earth except helium-3. And if you combine helium-3 with deuterium, you get nuclear fusion that has no radioactive fallout. And also, it's a superconductor, so quantum computing stuff. Great stuff. The special guest is not Darth Vader, but that would be interesting. Nikki, thank you so much. It is, it's one of the more interesting things of a lunar base. And there are some that say that a lunar base would not be complete without some sort of mass driver. And again, when we're thinking about producing things up into space and getting things up into orbit, if you can really start to manufacture raw goods in space, and then you can get them up into on the lunar surface and then get them up into space, you have just reduced the cost to launch down significantly. Right now, news. That will be pretty interesting. What kind of novel approaches to news are you using? I took a look at your stuff, and it's pretty good, but yeah, what's novel? Helmuth, watching from Orlando, that's great. Do we have to fight China for lunar wealth now? Okay, that's a really interesting question. Also, in today's press conference, this thing called, they're calling it a perimeter. They're basically saying that they're going to be these, I forget what they're called, like bouncers or hoppers, where they have these drones that can kind of do these hops, and they can examine everything that's going on below us and everything that's going on, mapping out the terrain really well. And so they're talking about perimeters, though, where this would establish a 100 to 200 mile perimeter around the lunar base. Why do we need a perimeter around the lunar outpost? It's a good question. But yeah. Also, a question that came up was, well, the Chinese are looking at lunar lava tubes for possible shelter. Should we be doing that? And NASA was basically like, look, our guys, our astronauts, they've explored caves too, so they didn't go into much detail, but maybe that's something that could happen way down the road. But they're going to be starting that first lunar base, that lunar outpost in Shackleton Crater. Shackleton Crater is named after Ernest Shackleton, who, if you've ever heard about the Shackleton expedition, it went south in Antarctica, literally. But like they were not, they got marooned in Antarctica, and then they had to resort to some really horrible things to stay alive. You know, obviously that's not going to happen on the moon, but it is one of the more interesting survival stories in human history. Why did I do NBC News Daily? Because Kate Snow and Zin Clay have the day off. We were talking about heists with heavy lift drones at work today. Really? How? Wait, heists as in bank robbery heists? What kind of work do you do? Maybe one day there will be a McDonald's and a Walmart on the moon. That would be weird. I mean, could you imagine a McDonald's like playground, those playhouse things on the moon? That would be pretty sick.
I feel like they've been getting rid of those.
Also, the YouTube videos he does are
Yeah, they have. They're like petri dishes, but they were so fun. They were so fun.
They really were.
Just go jump into the ball pit. Calla Lily sees people chatting. That's because we are getting ready. We're just waiting. We're waiting for the show to start here. We have finished our work a little bit early today because we have a very beefy interview with somebody at NASA. And then we've got, you know, some other stuff to do, but we didn't have as many pre-tapes as we normally do. I'd love to start with the NASA stuff. And if it were another day, maybe we would, but you know, that ceasefire with Iran is holding on by a thread, so we're going to start with that today.
About 5 minutes.
Do you think that NASA or SpaceX will be first actually landing on the moon? So, depends on how you define landing. So NASA's going to be landing stuff on the moon this year. They're going to be landing rovers on the moon several times this year and next year and the year after that. They're basically going to start the infrastructure of a lunar base. And sometimes that just means putting rovers down there that can start surveying the area and learn as much as they possibly can. But when it comes to putting humans down on the surface of the moon, we still have some technology to prove out before that happens. They've been replacing them with iPads in an empty room. They've been replacing what? Jay Place, I missed what you said earlier. Oh no, are you talking about McDonald's? Oh, SML, we missed you on Friday and Monday as well. Oh yeah, the UAP video and the file release. Dude, we have not even talked about that. Did you, like, look, there's only one video that really, I was like, what is this? All the other ones, they're very interesting. But the instant acceleration video, that was wild. Yeah, we got to do an update. Lise, we should do a UAP update tomorrow, right? That instant acceleration video is crazy.
You see how there's a space for between
Give your UAP friends a call.
Yeah. Do you want me to letter that?
Done and done. The rocket, Artemis versus Starship. So Starship, if they can get their Starship HLS, look, all eyes are going to be on what happens next at Boca Chica and, you know, with these Starship launches, and if they can get their V3 engines, you know, just dialed in perfectly. They had a very successful mission this last time. But if they can really dial that stuff in, all of a sudden 100 tons on the lunar surface changes everything. So if they can do that, then they have to become human-rated landers, which means that they have to have some sort of abort system. They don't really have an abort system that I know of because they're all, like the crew area is integrated into the full Starship. So we'll see what NASA does, but yeah, it's totally a game changer if that whole technology matures. Let's see, weather change. 2.5 minutes. All right, 2.5 minutes. Let's do it. Okay. Just triple check here. Are we going B to G?
Starting at B. I think just staying at B.
Staying at B? Okay.
Staying at B, right, Darren?
Got it. All right, cool. Okay, and if you guys are just joining us and you're wondering what is going on, this is Stay Tuned Behind the Scenes. Okay, so before each show, which starts at 5 o'clock here on the West Coast, 8 o'clock on the East Coast, we have a pre-show where we just chat and you guys ask and we try to put them in the show. More of a tech team, but how do y'all nicely manage and organize all the footage that NBC has? That's I don't know, we don't. On many different systems that are very fun to navigate. Media management is so difficult anywhere, whether it's a small organization or a large organization, and thankfully, I do not know. What do I do after the stream? Flip. Family. We all go home and we touch grass. What? Aaron Lim is in town? What's up, Aaron Lim? You guys even know what celebrity just rolled into this chat? Oh, man, I don't even think you guys know. And on YouTube, you definitely don't know. So over on TikTok, Aaron from The Rundown, from E, she just stopped by, and I'm pretty sure it's her. We're live. This is the news, girl. Here we go. We're going to start the news right now. We're going to get real serious. We're also talking about space. So stick around, Aaron. Aaron, you got to watch. Lunar base happening very soon here. How many seconds? 40 seconds. And anybody else that's watching. So here's what we do. All right, so before the show, we've got this live stream, right, where we talk about the news. And then in just a little bit, we're going to go here. And then right over on this side or on this side, you're going to see the news show pop up. And then during commercial breaks, just stick around right here, ask your questions. I'll be following along in the chat, and we can talk about the news, or we can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Let us know your thoughts all hour long. 15 seconds. Here we go. Have a good show, everybody. This is where we get nervous. This is where we lock in. And we're off. Have a good show, Lise.
4, 3.
Hey there, I'm Gotti Schwartz, and we're just minutes away from our interview with the head of NASA, Jared Isaacman, where we're going to talk about everything from building a base on the moon to a possible visit to Mars. And if things go according to plan, it could redefine so much of our future. But unfortunately, there are more pressing and higher stakes things, these human issues that are happening down here, starting with this worsening situation with Iran. That 6-week ceasefire truce, it is barely holding on by a thread. Tonight, Iran is accusing the United States of violating the ceasefire after the Pentagon says they hit Iran with self-defense airstrikes in southern Iran last night. According to CENTCOM, the U.S. targeted missile launchers and Iranian boats that were reportedly placing mines all near the Strait of Hormuz. And that is that critical waterway that Secretary of State Marco Rubio suggested is still at the center of negotiations.
Well, the straits have to be open. They're going to be open one way or the other. So they need to be open. What's happening there is unlawful. It's illegal. It's unsustainable for the world. It's unacceptable.
Meanwhile, Iran vowing to leave no act of aggression unanswered. They are responding already, saying it shot down an American drone and fired at an American fighter jet in its airspace. All this as the president calls a cabinet meeting at Camp David tomorrow. All right, let's get out to NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel, who's in Jerusalem tonight. Richard, tell us a little bit more about the strikes from both sides here. Are they over? Are they still going on? What's the latest?
Well, this was a very close call, Gotti. It seemed that this peace process and the possibility of an extended ceasefire with Iran, perhaps an end of the war, was almost derailed. And what happened, according to 2 U.S. officials who spoke to NBC News, is that Iran started this, that Iran fired first, that U.S. troops were acting, in their estimation, in self-defense, that Iran had been launching attacks against American aircraft in the area, launching small boats, launching drones, and that only after about 24 hours did the U.S. military respond with what one official described as very limited and very precise strikes. That's the American version of events. The Iranians said that this was a violation of the ceasefire. They promised some sort of retaliation, but so far we have not seen any retaliation. There have been no missile strikes against Israel, not against U.S. bases in the Gulf. It has been relatively quiet, and critically, ceasefire negotiations in Doha, Qatar, Sorry, it was a loud motorcycle passing that didn't have a muffler. Critically, the ceasefire negotiations did continue in Qatar today, which is an encouraging sign. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio was sounding quite optimistic, suggesting that a framework agreement, potentially allowing for more negotiations, calming things down even further, could be finalized potentially this week.
Yeah, I think we have a little bit more from Secretary Marco Rubio a little bit earlier today. Let's take a listen.
Like anything with something like this, it's going to take a couple days to settle on, even down to the disagreements over a word, a sentence. So we'll have to work through that. If there's going to be a deal, we're going to have to work through that. But this is, it's either going to be a good deal or there isn't going to be one.
So maybe a tone of optimism that things continue here. But Richard, we know that the president is now calling for all nations participating in peace talks to normalize relations with Israel. Is that going to be a non-starter for some nations like Iran?
That was a surprise to many people in the region. We are right now in what seems to be the final stages of ceasefire talks, and this would not be an end of conflict agreement the way it's being described as a framework agreement. And in this framework agreement, the two sides, the U.S. and Washington, would agree to halt their fire for 60 more days to allow for detailed discussions about Iran's nuclear program. There could be some lifting of sanctions. There could be a calming down generally of the situation. But as these talks are progressing, President Trump issued this statement on social media calling not on Iran necessarily to make concessions and improve relations with Israel, but the negotiators, countries including Pakistan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, countries that are trying to help broker this deal. President Trump said, actually, he said that they must do it. They must join on to the Abraham Accords, which is a peace deal that Israel, with the help of the United States, is trying to establish all across the Middle East to normalize relations between Israel and other countries. And that was a shock. And there are many of the countries that I just listed that have no intention whatsoever of joining the Abraham Accords. I spoke to one senior Arab official from one of the countries involved in these negotiations, and he said the priority should be now to open the Strait of Hormuz, to extend the ceasefire, to calm things down, and to stop the war, not talking about extending the Abraham Accords and improving relations with Israel, that those kinds of conversations should be held separately. So he was rejecting the idea of an all-for-one deal, forcing the negotiators to join the Abraham Accords, which, of course, is one of President Trump's signature diplomatic achievements, and which is being spearheaded by his son-in-law, Jared Kushner.
NBC's Richard Engel in Jerusalem. Richard, thank you. And turning now to a devastating crash in Belgium. A train slammed into a school minivan at a roadway crossing, killing 4 people, including 2 special needs students. Authorities say the safety barriers were down at the time, and they're trying to figure out how the van ended up in the train's path. Danielle Hamamdjian has the latest.
Really a tragic story that unfolded shortly after 8 a.m. this morning, so the usual school run time, and it happened at a level crossing in the Belgian town of Buggenhout, just 14 miles north of Brussels. A train crashing into a minivan, a school minivan, carrying 7 students. According to the public prosecutor, the barrier was down at the time and the red light was on. So why exactly did that driver cross through? That is still unclear and, of course, part of the investigation. Now, the railway operator says that the train driver applied emergency brakes, but, quote, the shock was extremely violent. Killed in the crash, 2 students, a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, as well as a 27-year-old chaperone and a 49-year-old bus driver. You can see video at the scene of the minivan lying on its side. A local transport operator saying that the minivan was subcontracted and it was had no mechanical issues. The driver himself was medically fit, was fully trained, and had a clean record. Now, 5 other children were injured. They were taken to the hospital. As for the train conductor, the drug and alcohol test came back negative. There were about 100 passengers or so on board. No major injuries, thankfully, there. Now, the investigation is ongoing, but we should note that there is history there. Belgium is a country where the railroad system crisscrosses through towns and villages throughout the country. And since 2021, there have been 36 people who've been killed in more than 168 such accidents. So this is not the first time something like this happens in Belgium, Gadi.
Yeah, so sad. Danielle Hamamdjian, thank you. And turning now to this chemical tank crisis that we're watching out in Washington state, where emergency crews are still at this manufacturing plant after a chemical tank implosion left at least 1 person dead and 9 others hospitalized. Officials say it happened this morning after a tank used to make paper ruptured somehow. And we're told so far there is no immediate threat to the public, but people should still stay away from that area. And out here in Southern California, thousands still can't come home after a damaged chemical tank at an aerospace plant triggered evacuation orders over fears that that could explode. Officials say that risk seems to have been eliminated. Let's bring in Steve Patterson, who's been following both of these for us tonight. Steve, let's start in Washington state. What do we know about what happened there?
Yeah, Gadi, police saying at least 1 dead and several people missing. So the worry is that the death count will significantly rise, or at least rise a little bit there on scene. Authorities putting a lock on the scene. We know this happened at about 7:30 this morning. It's this paper facility. They use that vat in a chemical called white liquor to turn wood chips into pulp to make these sort of pulverized paper products for other companies that use those products. And obviously it's a high amount of pressure, it's a high amount of heat, so it's a heavily volatile situation, although we don't exactly know what happened. But again, authorities saying multiple people missing. I want you to hear from a press conference earlier this morning with the officer confirming that. Listen to this.
At this time, there are also individuals who remain unaccounted for as crews recover and continue the recovery and accountability operations. 1 firefighter was also injured during the response, and he has since been treated and released at our Longview Hospital.
1 firefighter injured, of course, many more missing. Authorities, again, confirming that they're keeping a lock on the scene, trying to investigate and figure out what exactly happened there. Got it.
And Steve, it's always tough when officials say that there's no immediate threat to the public, but also everyone should stay away. What's happening at the scene right now?
Yeah, Gadi, you know, from all respects, this plant is about maybe 45 minutes north of Portland. It's right on the Oregon-Washington border. It seems like it's a plant that's sort of away from the public, right? It seems like it's something that is pretty concentrated, pretty isolated. You can see there in the pictures a lot of trees. Hopefully it's not near residences, and that's what police are saying right now. So again, you know, they're telling people, messaging, stay away from there. Obviously this implosion, not an explosion. Funny thing, because, you know, a lot of the local authorities, a lot of the local outlets there were talking to neighbors. They didn't really hear anything, right? It's not something that maybe you can physically hear or see. It just sort of happened, caused all this damage, and now police, of course, keeping a lock on the scene, investigating what went wrong. Got it?
Meanwhile, out here in Southern California, thousands of people still can't go home tonight. Where do things stand with that whole threat?
Yeah. 16,000 people still out of their homes. Of course, a far cry from the 50,000 that we've been reporting on all holiday weekend long. You can see it, though. This is Garden Grove. This is actually, now that the evacuation has lifted, the evacuation zone has significantly shrunk. So we can actually report in the city where this is happening. You can see the sheriff's department, police keeping a very tight lock. They don't want anybody in that evacuation zone. That's because just down the road, maybe only about a mile, is that tank. There was thankfully, authorities say, a rupture in the tank, like a small little hole, and police or authorities were looking to confirm if that was releasing pressure. Turns out, thankfully, that it was. That release of pressure made it so it eliminated the possibility of a huge, massive chemical explosion, which was the reason why you had all those people evacuated in the first place. Thankfully, they confirmed that is not going to happen. But what still could happen is a more minor explosion, and that's still right next to homes, right? I spoke to one woman who said she lives, like, her front door, you know, it blots the sun out of her front door. It's right there. She says her home and all the homes surrounding there, even if there was this smaller explosion, would still destroy that neighborhood, Gotti.
So scary. And yeah, always, I mean, when they said good news, there's a crack in the tank. It took a while for that to process, but yeah, hopefully those people will be able to go home very soon here. Steve Patterson, thank you so much. And turning now to Texas, where the first polls just closed in the state's primary runoffs that could end up deciding who controls Congress this November. The Republican Senate runoff is the latest test of President Trump's power over his party, with his late endorsement for Attorney General Ken Paxton over incumbent John Cornyn. Now, the decision has some Republicans worried that a Paxton matchup against Democratic candidate James Tallarico could put the seat at risk. Senator Cornyn spoke to our Ryan Chandler earlier today, defending his support for the president's agenda.
As you may have seen it from our advertising, voted with him 99.3% of the time. And so while I may not seem as MAGA as the opponent, I think I've been effective. My opponent, Ken Paxton, would be an albatross around the neck of Republicans on the ticket, because he would be spending most of his time trying to relitigate before a general election electorate all the scandals that he's been involved in.
And we're also watching some key House races tonight as Democrats battle each other for the seat after redistricting carved up some congressional districts. Joining us now at the big board is NBC's chief data analyst, Steve Kornacki. Steve, great to see you. Most polls in Texas just closed. Are we seeing any meaningful returns?
We've seen some very meaningful returns, Gotti. Look, we've gotten a ton of vote, actually, almost a fifth of all the votes statewide. And if you're Senator John Cornyn, you do not like the numbers that you're seeing so far here. You can see right now he's more than 20 points behind Ken Paxton, the state attorney general endorsed by Donald Trump in this race. And what we're really seeing here, Gotti, is, remember, this is sort of a rematch, a follow-up to the preliminary back in March. These were the two top vote getters in that preliminary back in March. And what we're seeing is, compared to back then, it is Paxton who's making massive improvements in one county after another, some major population centers, including right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area, down in the suburbs of Austin here, down in Corpus Christi, getting down towards South Texas, just across the board, county after county. You're seeing Paxton so far run dramatically better than he did in that preliminary, and you're seeing Cornyn obviously run much worse than that. So these early reports, if you're Ken Paxton, you are certainly feeling very good about what you're seeing. And really, if you're John Cornyn, there's really nothing at this moment to look at on that map to make you smile.
Yeah, we'll see if those trends continue, as 20% now reporting. Steve Kornacki, thank you so very much. And you can continue watching live coverage of Steve Kornacki and those votes roll in on NBCNews.com. And June 14th is notable for a few reasons. It is the president's birthday. It is a flag day. And this year, believe it or not, it is also the date of the first White House cage match. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has this one.
Tonight, new construction is underway for an unprecedented spectacle, a cage fight at the White House. A massive arch taller than the building itself, part of a makeshift arena for an upcoming Ultimate Fighting Championship event.
I have never seen anybody want anything so much as people want those tickets.
Gets you over the top with that right hand.
The mixed martial arts matches are scheduled for June 14th to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. The date for the fight also happens to be President Trump's birthday. It's a remarkable sight, the construction looming over the West Wing and the cranes for the ballroom project on the other side. The president has said that this temporary arena will hold more than 4,000 people.
We are going to pull off the boldest idea in sports history.
Tickets are free, and the UFC is footing the bill for the event. But NBC News has learned sponsorship packages that include ringside seats have been selling for $1 million or more, according to a Republican lobbyist familiar with the process. Decades ago, the president hosted boxing matches at his casinos. And he's often seen at UFC fights.
I know President Trump is a fighter.
UFC's president Dana White endorsing him in 2024.
I'm in the tough guy business, and this man is the toughest, most resilient human being that I've ever met in my life.
Trump supporter and UFC announcer Joe Rogan will be there, though Rogan also called the event a gimmick. Life is a gimmick, the president responded, but it's a good gimmick. It's going to be amazing. These MMA fights can get bloody, but the president's been a fan for a long time, and Dana White says it was the president's idea to host this event here at the White House. Fighters are even set to walk out from the Oval Office. Gotti?
Quite the soundtrack behind you there. Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. And don't go anywhere. Coming up next, we are chatting one-on-one with the big man at NASA, Jared Isaacman. He's going to join us to talk all things space race. Plus, more than 4 months after Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro was removed from power, we are getting an in-depth look at what day-to-day life is really like there. You're not going to want to miss that. And also, if you're seeing this little QR code, well, guess what? You can just pull out your phone, feel free to scan it through, and that will take you to a chat live during the breaks, during the show. You can come watch behind the scenes, streaming on YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. Hopefully, we'll see you there. All right, clear. 90 seconds. 90 seconds. All right, what do you guys want to hear from NASA?
Position G is net.
Yes, but when I start to judge, I remind myself that harming one another goes beyond blows. That is so true and very wise. Let's see, he did nothing for Cuba, or he did nothing for Venezuela. Mike, are you talking about Maduro? Or are you talking about President Trump? Interesting take. Freedom Face, hello. I mean, Mike, if I ever get a chance, maybe. SML, mug is on the desk. All right, so coming up in this block, we are going to be talking NASA, and then after that, we're going to be going to Venezuela. So, but this we shot a little bit earlier. We shot this interview in the last hour or so. So,
30.
We'll introduce it right here, 30 seconds. Big Mike on the countdown. And then we will get into the conversation. And if you have questions, I'll try to be monitoring the chat while that interview goes. It was a fun interview. 15 seconds, everybody. 15 seconds. Dude, I love this graphic.
7, 5, 4, 3.
Welcome back. A very big day over at NASA today. Space exploration, as we know it, is getting a huge upgrade. We've been telling you so much about the lunar base that the United States wants to build. Well, today we are getting some very solid details on how it's going to be built, and the timeline and the scale for humanity's first lunar outpost is wild. Look at this. This is massive. Perimeter spanning hundreds of miles. Astronauts live in quarters, lunar rovers, power stations, an off-world home base for Artemis astronauts who could live and work up there, but it's really going to require some of the most ambitious planning we have ever seen as a species. For now, they've broken it down into 3 phases. Phase 1 is going to be focused on building, on testing, on learning. Phase 2, that's going to be establishing the early infrastructure, a lot of that being done by robotics. And then phase 3 is when we will see a continuous human presence. 2032 and beyond. They also announced that the companies stepping in to make it all happen: Blue Origin, Astrolab, Lunar Outpost. They were all awarded hundreds of millions of dollars to build and deliver the lunar terrain vehicles. All of it aiming to make history, according to NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman.
So for those waiting patiently, the grand return is close at hand, and we will not slow down. We are moving with the competence and the purpose to accomplish the missions that only NASA is capable of achieving, and we are really just getting started.
And NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman joins us now. Mr. Administrator, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. Fascinating timeline on all of this with the first part of Operation Moonbase. It seems like it's already in motion, and it also seems like the first things first is mapping out and exploring the lay of the land in as much detail as possible with the rovers and the drones, right? What does that look like?
Well, I'll tell you, we're off to a really great start, right? So Artemis 2, just a month and change ago, we got to watch those 4 amazing astronauts fly around the moon, bring them back safely home to Earth, reestablish NASA back in the business of sending astronauts to the lunar environment. Artemis 3 is going to start stacking this summer, and then to your point, in parallel, while we're getting our astronauts ready for that grand return, we're building the moon base. So today we had some incredible announcements. First 3 missions that will go to the moon, uncrewed robotic ones later this summer, but we also announced 2 rovers on the lunar surface that have autonomous and crewed capability. But this is just the beginning. We're talking about a $20 billion investment over the next 7 years to establish that enduring presence on the moon, realize its scientific and economic potential, and master the skills for where we go next. And where we go next is Mars.
One stop, and then we're going to Mars next. Very exciting. I got to say, though, the rover designs are fascinating. We actually had a chance to take one of Astrolab's Flex rovers, one of the prototypes, out for a spin a little while ago here in Southern California. One of the big concepts early on was envisioning an outpost in like a modular, almost Lego-like way where a lot could be done simply and remotely before humans ever got there. I know that's not the prototype that you guys are using for this set of missions, but I do want to ask, that modular approach, is that still in play? Is a lot of what we're about to see when it comes to infrastructure going to be built robotically?
So the answer is yes, a lot of it will be built robotically. I would just say, I wouldn't necessarily call it modular. We're going to do things in an iterative way. So the entire phase 1 of the moon base is going to be a lot of littles. We're calling it the science of survival. We haven't been to the moon in more than a half century, right? It's extremely hard to do it. It's incredibly harsh environment right there. I mean, you got 400+ degree swings in daylight versus during the lunar night. We have a lot to learn. So phase 1, lots of landers, lots of rovers. You saw several announcements today. These are the first of many. We're going to be landing on a near monthly cadence starting in early 2027 to make the right decisions. What should be the power constructs, surface communications, orbital communications? What are going to be the eyes and ears of the moon? What do we need the rovers to do? Like you said, you experimented with, or you got an opportunity to drive one of them. We're going to probably buy a dozen rovers over the next 10 years as we learn, figure out what makes sense, and roll those improvements into subsequent vehicles. That's the whole game plan for mobility, power, communications, and habitation.
And let's talk a little bit about where everything is headed right now. Shackleton Crater, which is named by, as I understand it, it's named after that legendary explorer Ernest Shackleton, who he had a hell of a time in Antarctica. First off, very few humans have been to Antarctica. Very few people have been to space. I think you have been to both. Describe how inhospitable Shackleton Crater is going to be for the first humans up there.
Yeah, spot on with on that one, sir. I can tell you, having been to Antarctica and been to space, those are both going to be very easy in comparison to what we are asking our industry partners, our international partners, and our astronauts to do on the south pole of the moon. I mean, you're talking about an environment that is extremely harsh and dangerous, right? Forget the fact there is no atmosphere there. You're in the vacuum of space. You've got meteorites. Those are those light flashes the Artemis 2 astronauts observed when they were going around the south, when they were traveling around the far side of the moon. Meteorites, those are bullets that are crashing into the lunar surface. It's a high radiation environment. Even just the lunar regolith itself, the dust, and bringing it back into the vehicle after they take their suits off can be problematic. So this is challenging, but that's our specialty at NASA. Doing the really difficult tasks, the ambitious, the near impossible objectives is what we do best, and this is what we're doing on the moon.
And if we do start extracting a whole lot of ice there at the crater, what kind of game changer would that be?
I think this is paramount, right? So it was a good question. It actually comes up rather frequently. Why are we doing this? Is it because we're gonna mine the lunar regolith and get helium-3? Is it scientific? It's all of the above. There is so much we stand to learn from a scientific perspective. We might put rovers with radio telescopes on the far side of the moon. There is certain knowledge to be gained. There could be economic potential. We might have a lunar economy. There's absolutely inspiration for the next generation. But what is paramount is to master the skills, astronauts and innovative technology working with the water ice on the lunar South Pole to master the skills of in situ resource manufacturing that will be necessary for when we send astronauts to Mars, plant the stars and stripes, build the outpost there, and then be able to bring them back home safely to tell us about it.
I'm so glad you brought up helium-3. I feel like so many people are sleeping on what helium-3 can do. And if I understand this correctly, extraction of helium-3, again, that is probably pretty far on the horizon. But we're talking about nuclear power that may not have any radioactive fallout. There's all kinds of things we could do with helium-3. What do you think sizable amounts of helium-3 would do to a space economy if we could extract it from the moon?
So helium-3 has applications for quantum computing, and to your point, for fusion power. It can be a more efficient fuel source for it. What I will say is there is helium-3 here on Earth. We can manufacture it. In fact, a lot of the reactors up north are capable of doing it. But the question will be, will there be so much demand that helium-3 from the lunar surface actually sparks that lunar economy? Maybe we could be 3D printing the regolith, or maybe there isn't economic potential. We don't know. We haven't been there in a really long time, and we're going back. We're putting a heck of a demand signal out there. I mean, there's going to be so many landers and rovers on the lunar surface. Certainly, we're going to have our astronauts there infrequently at first until you get to the point where it may be an operational base similar to how we keep a continuous presence in low Earth orbit on the International Space Station. So there may be a lunar economy, but what we do know is there is water ice there, and our astronauts will work with it, again, to master those skills that are going to be imperative, because in the not too distant future, if we can put astronauts on the moon, we'll be able to put them on Mars. The hard part is how do you bring them back? And manufacturing propellant on the moon is a great place to figure it out when you're 4 or 5 days away from home and really get good at it before you send astronauts 9 months, a year away from home on Mars, where they're going to have to be incredibly good at those skills.
And Mr. Administrator, one part of your job that I just don't envy is the weird, odd time that this comes in the space era timeline. We have a lot of proven rocket technology, some of it going back to the 60s that we're seeing on display. Now we see Blue Origin. They're definitely going to be playing a big role in getting some of the smaller and medium-sized loads to the moon. But on the horizon, we also have this very big question mark, this looming possibility of putting 100 tons of cargo on the lunar surface in a single go. Like, how do you plan a moon base with that kind of question mark? What would a mature Starship platform do to the timeline that you laid out today?
I mean, what SpaceX is working on with Starship is a total game changer. I think I've referred to it as almost a light switch-like moment for humanity, because when you've got multiple factories mass-producing a fully reusable vehicle, the booster and the upper stage, it changes everything from an orbital economy perspective. For scientific endeavors, I mean, imagine the telescopes you're going to build in these things and almost these prefab spaceships and send them out to Lagrange points, figure out what they might encounter, not to mention the amount of mass they're going to be able to efficiently put on the lunar surface. And geez, even on Mars, if you can figure out orbital prop transfer, which I have no doubt they will be able to do, then you have a capability that's immensely valuable for their moon base, but also for an inevitable outpost that'll be on Mars someday. This is why we're approaching it in phases. Phase 1, as I said, it's a science or survival. We haven't been there in a while. It's an opportunity to learn and experiment across communications, navigation, mobility, logistics, early habitation. You want to figure all this stuff out before the heavy lift landers come into play, so you can give, so your requirements can be rather specific. This is what we need, and you've got the efficient mass transport capability that Starship, Blue Origin, and others will inevitably make available, so you can build out that moon base. So yes, we are thinking about that, what I think is an inevitable capability, a light switch capability for humankind. We're just doing the experimentation during the first phase.
And speaking of mass, I also wanted to ask about this. Mass drivers, like there's some that say that a future lunar base would not be complete without mass drivers, which, as I understand it, because of the moon's 1/6, like very weak gravity, we could basically just build a ramp and then just fling things out into space from the moon's surface on electromagnetic sleds. Right now, I mean, this very exciting and weird time, is that wishful sci-fi thinking, or do you think that mass drivers could be on the lunar horizon pretty soon?
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with the physics at all. I think it makes plenty of sense to build a mass driver on the lunar surface. What I'd say is the bigger question is what are you going to 3D print with the lunar regolith to then to make use of the mass driver? Because you certainly don't want to go through all the trouble of bringing the satellites or whatever the material is all the way from Earth to land it on the moon, construct it there, and then accelerate it. You might as well have just deployed it from a Starship or a Blue Origin type lander. I think the real trick is making good use of the material already on the moon, whether you're 3D printing your satellites or whatnot, or interacting with some other materials that you brought from Earth, and then make good use of the mass driver, which, like I said, makes plenty of sense. So this all comes down to what value can we extract out of the lunar regolith.
Yeah, I'm going to be thinking about 3D printing a lunar regolith for days after this interview. I really, really appreciate it. Have to ask, though, there's administrating here on Earth, and then there's administrating off-world. Like, any plans to go up there?
Well, I'll tell you, we are running super hard at NASA these days. Hopefully that's evident from the time the president released the national space policy to when we had our ignition event. We said it wasn't PowerPoint. We were dropping RFIs. We're putting NASA talent into the supply chain to drive outcomes. And here we are. We've got awards already, and we've got missions launching in 26 and 27. The point is, we're extremely busy realizing President Trump's national space policy. We're going to focus on that, and I have no doubt well, hopefully there'll be opportunities later on when the work is done to maybe revisit some of my orbital ambitions. We'll call it that.
There you go. That dream's got to stay alive. Finally, though, like the price tag that you kicked around at the top of this conversation, still $20 billion. But obviously, mass drivers excluded in that. But is that realistic?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you take a look at the resources that President Trump has made available between the Working Family Tax Cut Act, that's a $10 billion one-time plus up in NASA. I mean, the single biggest supplemental investment since the Kennedy era. A large portion of that going into exploration, which is putting American astronauts back on the moon to stay, which is the moon base. And then I think you take a look at the 26 appropriations, the president's budget request. We absolutely have the resources, and not only that, to dial it up, to get those landers on the moon, get the rovers there, to learn in that unique environment, to inform phase 2 and phase 3, to realize that enduring presence on the moon, and do all the other things: the International Space Stations, our astronauts, our X-plane portfolio, the orbital economy, lots of great missions of science and discovery like Roman and Dragonfly. The public should rightfully have high expectations for what NASA can deliver with the resources available, and we intend to show them.
Yeah, and just to put things in perspective, I mean, $20 billion for a lunar base here in California. We're still waiting for that link from LA to San Francisco, and that's over $100 billion. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman, thank you so much for joining us. And coming up, celebrations during Memorial Day weekend were hit by some teen takeovers. We're going to take a look at what that means and why they're trending around the country. That's coming up next, so stay tuned. All right, 2 minutes. Great. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much. That was so much to think about.
C reverse.
All right, C reverse next. Guys, what did you think? Okay, humans can't survive on the moon. That's true. They cannot. 200 degrees under, negative 200, and then positive 200. 200 degrees. The daytime, negative 200 and negative 400, I believe. Some parts of, no. I think it's plus 400. I can't remember the exact temperatures, but regardless of whether it's day or night, you can't survive there. You need a whole lot of engineering. So that's why they're talking nuclear power. That's why they're talking all kinds of very exotic ways of keeping those astronauts protected as they live on the moon. But man, it is going to be quite the time to be alive. And guess what? We're all alive in this very, very small window where humanity as a species goes to a different planet. And
1 minute.
First stop is the moon, maybe as a gas station, because we got to figure out how to get all the way out to Mars and beyond. And our closest neighbor is the best way to get there. SML, we are doing that right now. Nizert, NASA for president. I do like NASA's directive, that's for sure. Would I go to Antarctica? Yes. Would I go to the moon? Yes. Would I go to Mars?
30.
Yes. We're all connected. Homestead, you're totally right. And that's why we do those types of segments. Campbell Corn Lab, I want a regular 3D printer. Same. Immediately after that, we're like looking at different companies that are doing that. And there are a lot of them out there, so stay tuned.
5, 4, 3.
Hey, welcome back. Here are some other headlines we are watching tonight. Memorial Day weekend was wet for the South, and it's not drying up yet. 15 million people are still under flood alerts. From the South, out in Louisiana to Georgia and parts of Texas might see large hail, dangerous winds, and even a few tornadoes. This is all ahead of a rainy week for that entire region. And 3 people who were wanted in the United States for burglaries at athletes' homes were recently arrested out in Argentina. Officials say the Chilean citizens allegedly targeted the homes of athletes, including Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. They are allegedly part of a South American theft group that stole more than $2 million worth of stuff from those homes. And New Mexico's Attorney General is asking Epstein survivors to come forward and help with the state's investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's former New Mexico ranch. Raul Torres shared an open letter urging survivors to contact the state's DOJ directly, saying their input is essential in that investigation. The state reopened the criminal investigation into the Zorro Ranch in February. And a federal court has blocked Alabama from using a GOP-drawn congressional map for the 2026 elections. The panel of judges ruled that the map likely discriminated against black voters by weakening the state's second majority black district. The decision keeps the state's previous court-approved map in place while officials are preparing an appeal. And in other legal news, a federal judge is delaying the trial involving former FBI Director James Comey until October. The case centers on that social media photo showing shells arranged to read 8647, which prosecutors say threatened President Trump. Comey has denied any wrongdoing and plans to challenge the charges before trial. And the rise of these so-called teen takeovers are causing chaos in some cities, and things took a violent turn over the weekend. You can see in this video from last night, police in Chicago chasing and arresting teens after a large crowd gathered at a beach. And on Sunday, 5 Chicago police officers were hurt during another takeover where an 18-year-old allegedly plowed his car into the group. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa explains how officials are trying to stop the trend.
Tonight, dramatic new video of Chicago police pinning people down and struggling to quell massive Memorial Day crowds. Police say 53 people were arrested and nearby 3 teens were shot. This 24 hours after investigators say an 18-year-old plowed his car into a crowd of 5 officers, all now in fair condition. The teen charged with attempted murder. 2 so-called teen takeovers in 24 hours. A viral trend sweeping the nation with massive gatherings organized online and unleashed on unsuspecting communities coast to coast, often turning chaotic or violent. In Tampa, police body camera video shows massive fights amid a teen takeover earlier this month. Here, you see the mayhem from above. Authorities say 22 people were arrested as young as 12. Another brawl breaking out at this Chipotle in Washington, D.C. And outside Milwaukee, cars spinning out in this intersection. Authorities last month responding to 12 teen takeovers in one weekend. Now, Chicago officials weighing targeting parents, with one representative proposing charging parents of minors arrested at teen takeovers after the city's 10 p.m. curfew with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. A Class A misdemeanor punishable by up to a $2,500 fine and 364 days in jail.
This strategy of potentially charging parents, do you think it would be effective?
I think that it's a start. We need to have
a proactive approach from police, whereas they should be monitoring social media to establish where these meetups would be occurring and placing officers accordingly.
One idea as desperation to rein in teen takeovers grows. Maggie Vespa, NBC News, Chicago.
And we'll see it work if it works. Maggie Vespa, thank you so much. And coming up, still ahead on our show, our first look into Venezuela over 4 months after Nicolas Maduro was removed from power. We spoke to those living there now and how they've seen things change since then.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. We got 2 minutes. Okay. There aren't enough youth programs for kids. Yep. Yes. Got it. Okay. And then are we going to have all of the results in, or is it just for the green one? Okay. And where is that? Is that for D? No. Is it? Yeah. D1, right? No. Kornacki update. Okay. Got it. And then we're going Venezuela? Got it. Okay. So I don't know if you guys heard that, but Lisa was just in the ear. We are going to go back to Kornacki. There's an update in the election there. And then we're going to go to Venezuela, and then we're going to be talking about the sycophancy in your pocket. My daughter was a first responder to 2 shootings in Kansas City. She is a doctor. Oh, man.
1 minute.
Thank you for giving life to somebody who saves lives. Where are the parents? That is a very good question. New York once banned spitting. Really? I did not know that. You learn something new every day. Most are working multiple jobs, so it means parents too. Binks the cat? That is so insightful. You're totally right. Totally, totally right. It's a lot more difficult than, people would just throw out ideas, think.
30.
Trump did nothing for him. Mike, it's an interesting take. I see where you're coming from. We do need role models. All right, here we go.
10.
Election time. Let's go back to Cornec. Don't remind us, Homestead.
4, 3.
And we are back with some breaking news. A race now called in the Texas primary. Democratic Representative Al Green unseated by Representative Christian Menefee in a Texas primary. Let's get straight over to Steve Kornacki. Steve, this just came in?
Yeah, Gotti, and I think the scale of this one is really surprising here because, again, we're talking about runoffs, meaning, these are 2 candidates who faced off back in March in a preliminary election. There were multiple candidates then. Nobody got 50%. It was very close in the preliminary between Menefee and Green. Green, the longtime incumbent. Menefee just elected in a special election to a different seat a few months ago. But wow, what a difference a few months make here. In this runoff election, Menefee now is absolutely kind of pouring it on over Green. And in particular, what's happened in this district is right around Houston and the big suburbs just south of Houston in Fort Bend County. And what's happening is Fort Bend County is the political base of Al Green. In that preliminary, he did great there, made him competitive district-wide. The floor has just fallen out for him in his own political base tonight in Fort Bend County. He's getting clobbered there. Menefee's also doing quite well in his own base in Harris County around Houston, and that translates into a more than 2-to-1 lead here for Menefee district-wide, and a declaration from our decision desk that he will win. This is a battle of 2 incumbents. Again, Green has been there for decades. Menefee was elected to a different seat in a special election just a few months ago in that redistricting sort of war in Texas. They merged those 2 districts into one, and Menefee survives in this battle of incumbents.
Wow, great. Thank you so much for that update, and we'll be checking back with you in just a bit. Steve Kornacki, thanks. And more than 4 months since President Trump ordered military forces to remove Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro from power, there's a clearer picture emerging of how hard life still is for people there. A lot of people get paid less than 500 bolivars a month, which is about $1 US. Among them, seniors, forcing many to rely on family just to survive. Correspondent Ana Heredo has more from Caracas.
Frustration with shrinking paychecks and soaring prices are prompting many Venezuelans to take to the streets of Caracas after Nicolás Maduro's repression silenced them for years. Among the protesters, seniors struggling to survive on pensions now worth less than $1 a month.
Estamos pidiendo salario justo.
Damelis Jewes is also feeling the squeeze. At 77, the former social worker and professor at the Central University of Venezuela is back on the streets where she protested as a student.
Ay, cuántas marchas y cuántos momentos de persecución.
Jewes and her 95-year-old mom, Florencia, live on the west side of Caracas near Fuerte Tiuna. The military fort American forces struck on January 3rd, taking Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores. From her window, she watched the explosions that night.
Pero yo sabía que venían por él. Cuando empezó inmediatamente la reflexión sobre lo que nos ha pasado, me sentí muy mal y me siento muy mal.
And like many, Jewes thought Maduro's removal meant a better economic outlook after decades of record high inflation.
Esa quincena no es para llorar.
Jewes' reality is defined by scarcity. Running water is a luxury she can scarcely afford. She hasn't bought new clothing in 13 years. And animal protein, once a staple, is now a rare treat.
2 veces al mes yo compro, estos son 650 gramos de carne molida de primera para yo hacerle salsas a mi mamá.
For nearly a decade, the Venezuelan government distributed bags of food, urging recipients to join the ruling party. The handouts became the only reliable food source for many. Jewes, like most, stopped receiving Maduro's food packages after his ousting.
Aquí llegaba, fíjate tú, un pollo, una salchicha, la sardina y qué sé yo. Mas nunca ha llegado.
In late April, the government announced it would give seniors an increase to bring the total pension to $70 a month. Still, Jewes, once a staunch Hugo Chavez supporter, and her mom survive on a combined income of less than $2 a month and the kindness of relatives. She says she can't even afford to fix her washing machine.
Yo estoy lavando a mano. Y lavo muchísimo a mano porque mi madre está encamada.
More than 140 days after Maduro's removal, interim President Delcy Rodriguez embraces a former nemesis, the United States, as a strategic partner.
It's been a great thing for Venezuela. The people are really happy. They're dancing in the streets because they have a lot of money coming in through the big oil companies.
The International Monetary Fund projects that Venezuela will see a 4% growth from a 1.5% growth in 2025. But Jewes says she remains deeply skeptical of how new business opportunities will improve the economy.
Esto que estamos viviendo no es ninguna transición. Yo creo que Estados Unidos sí se planteó para poder aprovechar el petróleo y todo como lo está haciendo y le entrega el país.
¿Cómo se ve usted de aquí a diciembre? ¿Cómo ve el futuro del país?
Yo quiero soñar, quiero tener esperanza.
Ana Vanessa Herrero, NBC News, Caracas.
I hope that everyone deserves Ana Vanessa. Thank you so much. And still to come in the future of everything, are AI chatbots making us less sympathetic? We're taking a look at how interacting with AI can possibly make us sycophants. But first, you got to see this because this drone show in Australia didn't exactly stick the landing. What was supposed to be a dazzling light drone show, oh no, what is happening there? All of a sudden, it was a tech nightmare. More than 80 drones plummeting into Darling Harbour in Sydney. The performance was canceled mid-show, and crews say a change in radio frequency caused the drones to malfunction. No one was hurt, but definitely not the grand finale everyone was hoping for. We'll be right back. Man.
All right, Claire, 3.5.
That was perspective.
You guys still on
Yeah.
set?
Right now? Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Got it.
Great.
Okay. And that's all going to be in there right at the top of the show? So, got it. Okay, perfect. And then do we need to wrap this early for that, or are we good? Got it. Okay. All right. And then this one is, how much time do we have? Okay. 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 Got it. I'm not sure, but we can chat forever. And it's Myra? Mira? Myra. Okay. Guys, chat. What's up? We got Myra in the house. Myra Chang, right? Yes. And you're at Stanford. Yes. And you have discovered the craziest thing about, all these, you start pulling on a thread, and the next thing you know, you have a full-on societal meltdown on the horizon. Okay, so we're gonna be, sorry. So this is our little chat, by the way. So during our show, we have chat going, and then during commercial breaks, a lot of times they just get to sit here and ask questions about the news. So if you guys are sending in questions, I'll try to get them to her. And then we've got the actual show that's gonna happen here in 1 minute and 33 seconds. So as this comes up, have you done this before?
No.
Oh, really? This is your first time?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So basically in 1 minute and 20 seons.
Standing at the big wall. Yeah.
I'll be standing over here at the big wall.
Okay.
And then you just stay right there, and then I'm gonna come back, and then you just chat with me. Pretend like all this craziness isn't even here.
So I look at you, I just...
Look at me, and then, take me through how this all started.
Wow.
The origin story of this is wild. It started off as just, we'll get to it in just a second.
Okay, sounds great.
1 minute.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're doing this. And we found your Instagram, and it was just with you. Who is is that your advisor?
Dan Jarofsky. Yeah, that's my advisor. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
45.
Yeah, and it's such an important story. It is wild. Crazy times we live in. Well, this is a cool graphic, guys. Thank you.
30.
Do you know who Husk IRL is? No. Okay, he's this guy that we use from time to time. We're going to use a little sound from him off the top here. Yep.
15.
Got it. And it's Cornyn, right? Yep.
I've been practicing my Spanish. Do you want to hear it?
Of course, I'd love to hear it. Go ahead, I'm all ears.
Hey, how's it going? The weather is nice.
10 here.
That sounded great. You've got a solid start with those conversational phrases.
So that Spanish was pretty good?
You're definitely on the right track.
You're definitely on the right track. That's what happens when AI tries so hard to be a people pleaser. It's what we call sycophantic AI. When you hear exactly what the AI thinks you want to hear, no matter what you're saying, the question is, does that mean AI makes us more self-centered? Well, there's a Stanford study published in the journal Science that says, yes, by sucking up to us a ton, AI could be making us worse people. Let's bring in the lead author of that study, Myra Chang. Thank you so much for being with us. This study definitely stopped a lot of us in our tracks. And as I understand it, it started when you started to notice some of your friends or colleagues or other people on campus using AI to write breakup texts?
Yeah, I think I just saw a lot of people around me using AI for relationship advice, and not just relationships, even just how do I deal with my friends, because social relationships are hard, and people will naturally turn to anything they can get to understand that.
And so it starts there, and it makes sense, and then all of a sudden, as your research gets deeper and deeper, alarm bells start going off, right?
Yeah, I think it's really hard actually to tell that it's agreeing with you, especially for something like advice, right? Because if you're speaking Spanish, you obviously know that your Spanish might not even be Spanish at all. But for relationship advice, if you ask, I'm in a disagreement with my friend and who's right, There's not really like an objective answer, so you can't even check if the AI's answer is right or wrong.
Because it seems like it's always going to take your side. Like, I
Right.
cheated, and it's like, well, you cheated because of this, and it's
Yeah,
not
you
your
had
fault.
good
and-
intentions.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
And yet, once you get, I don't want to say addicted, but once you get accustomed to having this kind of sycophant in your pocket at all times, what does that do to our behavior?
So in our study, we found that after people interacted with the sycophantic AI just one time, they became more self-centered and less likely to consider other people's perspectives.
And what do we do about that? I mean, is there a way to make an AI that's like, no, I'm going to push back at exactly the right time that a human would? Or is this just something that we're going to have to figure out how we evolve?
I think that it's definitely something that I think that, you know, the people building AI need to be working on fixing, and something that I'm really interested in working on fixing. I also think that it's a problem that we actually need a lot of, you know, regulation and oversight over. So I don't think it's like a, you know, oh, we're doomed and we just have to learn how to live with it. I think that this is a problem that, you know, the time is now for it to be solved. But I think it is also a really challenging problem, because what we found is that even though it's bad for people, you know, people really prefer and trust it in the moment. And it's hard to tell in the moment.
Does this seem like something that is, and again, I don't want to be too hyperbolic here, but does it seem like this is something that is truly fraying away at some of the, like the social fabric of the way we interact with each other? Or do you think that we have enough time to catch this and to really take this into consideration whenever we're, I don't know, navigating relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an optimist. I think that we definitely have time to fix the problem. But I do think that, you know, social relationships are so important. They're, you know, the fabric of society. They're really important to our well-being. And because AI takes away the friction that you might have that's actually so important to human relationships, you know, it's time for us to really try to make sure that that doesn't just disappear.
Yeah. That cold, hard truth sometimes keeps us in line. Real quick, I know you probably use AI a lot. I use AI a lot. What do we do in the meantime? Do we tell AI, like, do not ask, like, don't be so nice to me? What's the solution?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very personal thing for each person, but I would say, you know, don't replace your friends or your relationships with AI, right? Like, if you would normally turn to those people for support or for advice, like, you should know that AI is not going to be the same in terms of, you know, the kinds of advice that it's able to give.
Yeah, it seems like such a weird time right now in society. And again, it starts with just looking at what people are doing with their breakups. And the next thing you know, you're seeing big patterns that are emerging with all of us. I really appreciate you stopping by. And thank you so much.
Yeah,
It's such
thank
an
you.
important story. And that is going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gotti Schwartz. We'll see you here tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned to NBC News Now. And we are back with breaking news tonight. A major race now called in Texas. Trump-backed candidate Kim Paxton has won the state's Senate race, beating out four-term incumbent John Cornyn. And in the House, just moments ago, we projected Christian Menifee as the winner in the Texas 18th Congressional District primary. Let's get straight over to Steve Kornacki. Steve, what are we seeing here?
Yeah, Gotti, I mean, look, the numbers kind of speak for themselves in this case here. Polls just closed, as you said here. We were really just waiting on the Mountain Time Zone, a couple counties to come in. But it was evident literally from the first 5 seconds here of this election night, because we just started getting results really quickly that showed a total shift, a total reversal from the preliminary back in March when these two candidates, Ken Paxton and John Cornyn, ran against each other. Back in March, as a matter of fact, Cornyn finished in first place over Paxton. He beat him by about 2 points. Neither one of them got a majority. That's why we had this runoff. But it was very close between these candidates back in March. But this map started lighting up just after 8 o'clock. In fact, I can show you the very first county that came in is a very big one in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex here. This came in at like 8 o'clock and 5 seconds. And look at this. Paxton was absolutely absolutely crushing Cornyn. This is a place that Cornyn had actually won, outpaced Paxton in the preliminary, total reversal. And throughout the last hour, we've just seen this in county after county. There's 254 of them here in Texas, and there's really basically no good news on this map anywhere for Cornyn. Just a total shift. Folks will be debating here, in the final week of this campaign. Obviously, Donald Trump got behind Ken Paxton here. Did his endorsement cause Paxton to win by such a landslide margin here? Was Paxton already heading towards that? Was Trump trying to sort of get ahead of that? Was it a combination of the two? Folks can have those discussions coming out of this, but what's clear is this was a very close race between these two in the preliminary, and it is very much not that tonight. Ken Paxton is going to win this in an absolute landslide, and John Cornyn is going to become now the second elected incumbent senator in 10 days to lose a Republican primary. Louisiana's Bill Cassidy did 10 days ago. Before that, Gotti, it had been 14 years.
Fascinating. Steve Kornacki, thank you. Let's bring in Ryan Chandler, who's at John Cornyn's headquarters right now. He might be able to answer some of the questions that you were just asking, Steve. So, Ryan, I imagine a pretty grim mood over there right now, but any insight into whether this might have been that Trump endorsement, or were things heading in this direction?
Well, Gotti, the numbers really speak for themselves tonight, and so does the environment here at Cornyn HQ. I want to give you a sense of the room here, which told the story of this night well before the election results ever came in. This is a room that was never primed for an election night party. The sign on the outside of this small conference room here at this hotel says election night celebration, but that is not what it was ever intended to be. There are no balloons, there's no music, there are not even any supporters here. Everybody here that you see is press or staff. We expect to hear from Senator Cornyn reacting to this race that's now been called shortly. But I sat down with him earlier today, and he reflected on what this means for a party that he has helped to build through a 40-year career in public service. And he said that he worries that Paxton's nomination now risks everything that he has tried to build, risks Republicans losing a seat that they've held for decades. We'll see if he strikes a more conciliatory tone tonight. He said that he'll support whoever the nominee may be, but it's going to be hard to walk back a year of bashing Paxton as somebody who is legally and ethically compromised, and now say that he's going to throw his support behind Paxton tonight. Gotti.
Yeah, quite the telling picture you painted there. Ryan Chandler, thank you. And we're going to get back into Top Story, which is already in progress. That's the show, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for hanging out for the extra inning there that we had. Quite the development, but as Ryan Chandler said, like, if you're going to have a celebration and there's no balloons and it's just a bunch of reporters and cameras, you kind of know how it's going to go. Let's see. I'll have to Google them. What happens if NBC needs to do a special report mid-show? Boom. We're right here in place, and we will get here and do that. Homestead. AI, do these pants make me? Yeah. Yep. You guys are the best. Anyway, we will see you tomorrow, and can't wait for more, so stay tuned.